Thank you, Roy, for that terrific introduction. I'm so pleased to be representing the Geoffrey Beene Foundation and to have the opportunity to sit with the three of you today, at least virtually. I was scheduled to provide a brief introduction to each of you for an in-person awards event for Research America a little more than a year ago before the pandemic hit and our world changed. There is no silver lining to COVID-19, but I'm so glad and truly honored to have the opportunity to go beyond introductions and to have this conversation with the three of you. I have a single question that I'd like to pose to each of you in turn. Thinking back on your esteemed careers, what advice do you wish you had received along the way? And what would you tell early career researchers wanting to follow your fields and follow in your footsteps? Paul, maybe you'd be willing to go first?
Sure. I guess the what I would have loved to have heard was just trust your instincts and do what you enjoy. I think I did ultimately do all that. I just did it with sort of my sort of heart in my throat because I was really never quite sure I was doing the right thing. I mean, I was a psychology and English major in college. Didn't have any discernible skills. I couldn't act. I couldn't play a musical instrument. So medical school seemed like a reasonable idea. Didn't really know what I was doing or why, but and then I thought I would be a pediatrician. I mean, I did a residency in pediatrics, and enjoyed all sort of the infectious disease people who I had known, like Mike Levine, for example, and Ellen Wald and Richard Hornick and Ted Woodward. So that sort of moved me in towards infectious disease. Still, I imagined I would be a general practicing pediatrician. But when I then finished residency, I did a fellowship in infectious disease and did basic science research for 26 plus years, without ever having done any research before that. None, not in college, not in medical school, never. And I just enjoyed it. It was fun, but I was always worried that I was picking a relatively insecure job. But I think that's what I learned, was just do what's fun, and for that. And the person who should have told me that was Michael Levine, but he sort of modeled it, because he clearly was doing what was fun, which was work in the developing world. And the same thing with Dr. Nabel. So they modeled that behavior for me. So I guess nobody really needed to tell me.
Wow, that's super inspiring. Maybe the most natural thing is to turn to Mike and ask him the same exact question, but maybe you can add to the things that Paul already resonated that he took from you, and what else you could actually add for the next generation of leaders in our field.
Well, thank you, and thank you for your words, Paul. Like Paul, I didn't know I would end up having a long career in research. One message I would share is whatever the young investigator is thinking will be the trajectory. Do not estimate the role of luck in influencing exactly what you accomplish and what you end up doing. And you'll have good luck, you'll have some bad luck. It's part of the life experience as well as the research experience. The second message that I have is that when you get into research and you're in the hunt to drill down, to find the answer to a scientific question, you're thrilled by it, you get deeply immersed, you need to be careful that you don't overdo it. And the antidote is to learn not only to work hard, but to unwind with equal ardor. There's someone who commented on love of work and recognition of the importance of vacation and periodic breaks. And that was Supreme Court Justice Louis Brandeis, who said that he could do 12 months of work in 11 months, but not in 12 months. And I love that statement because it points to the balance and how time away from work, even though you love what you're doing, recharges the human battery and actually leads to enhanced productivity when you return.
That's great. Thank you so much for that, Mike. And we'll turn to you, Gary. And I'll just say before asking you the same question, I think knowing your career journey a little bit, that you've been able to have an impact in different spheres. It'd be great to get your perspective on how you've done that journey and what you've learned and what you would tell people younger than you who are earlier in that journey and what your perspective is.
Ross, thank you. And thanks to Mike and Paul for their wise comments as well. When I look at what I've been able to do in my career, I think the best piece of advice that I would follow is one that I read when I was in Washington, D.C., where I was at the Theodore Roosevelt Park in Washington. And there's an inscription on one of the statues in the park which says, keep your eye on the stars and your feet on the ground. It was a quote from Teddy Roosevelt. And, as I thought about what I was doing then, and as I think about what I have done professionally, I think it's really great advice for a scientist and a young physician scientist. We all have to get our work done. We all have to get our grants. We all have to publish our papers. We all have to keep our feet on the ground in terms of moving the science forward. But if you don't keep your eyes on the stars, you can sometimes get mired down in some of the more mundane aspects of the work. And particularly for those of us who work in vaccines, those are our stars. That's our opportunity to impact on a broad universe of people in ways that we sometimes might not have imagined when we started our careers. So I think that's something that I always try to carry along with me. The other piece of advice I would pass along is one that was given to me by my postdoctoral mentor, David Baltimore. When I left the lab, I sat down with David and I said, David, do you have any advice for me as I start my career? I was a postdoc at the time. And David said, no, I don't have any advice for you. You learned how to do science here, and you just go out and do it. And then there was a little pause, and David said, well, but there is one thing. And I said, yeah. And he said, don't hire good people. And I said, what? He said, yeah, don't hire good people. He said, hire great people, because the good people will do the things that need to be done, but they're not going to give you the breakthroughs, and you're not going to lead them to the breakthroughs. And if you fill up with people who are good but don't have that inspiration and that willingness to go beyond the ordinary or even beyond the good, you will often miss the opportunity to go to great. So I think that that's another good piece of advice. Every time I have strayed from it in my professional career, I've regretted it. So I hope that's something that's useful to others.
Wow, that is extraordinary words that I will certainly take to heart, and I think everybody will. I'll just say two things. One is a personal thanks to each and every one of you for all you've done for the field and your leadership in science broadly and in the vaccine field. We've never seen greater moment for impact. And I think you really exemplify the idea that the ability of science to help human health and the power of science and what we all need to do to be part of that and to support it and what it can do, what you've done and the way you've paid for all of us. I thank you for that. And I'm really appreciative that we're all on this journey together. Thank you so much.